Right then, let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast powered by MK Battery for the 24-25 season. MK Battery has been a long-standing supporter of Powerchair Football, working closely with the WFA to provide the essential batteries that power our sport. Beyond supplying equipment, they have been instrumental in driving the sport's growth and supporting its development at every level. In today's episode, Alex Dowding, Rosie Hodgson and Charlie McLellan will be recapping the action from an incredible weekend in the 24-25 Optegra Premiership. Optegra, the official sponsors of the National League for the 24-25 season, are a leading provider of eye healthcare, specialising in vision correction, cataract surgery and other advanced treatments. Now, let's hand over to Alex, Rosie and Charlie to take you through all the action and highlights.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the 2-on-1 podcast. It is a time for a Premiership review. As Ryan's probably said in the intro, Ryan wasn't at the weekend, so we are delighted to instead present Charlie McLellan and Rosie Hodgson. How you guys doing?
I'm doing very well. Very well. Very much in the Christmas spirit now, I think.
Good. And Rosie, you all good?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, all on ready for Christmas.
If you're ready for Christmas, that's a very impressive effort. Hopefully everyone else is as well. And chance to kick back and relax and not worry too much about Powerchair for the festive season. However, we've got an episode for you to listen to where we were going to review the Premiership weekend that's just happened. A very exciting one, one that showcased how well the teams in the middle of the table and bottom of the table have progressed and are challenging those that are traditionally up the top. Some interesting results, some great football, some great goals, lots of big scores as well. And yeah, looking forward to this one. We're going to start where we always do, which is at the top of the table, which would not normally be these guys, but is Leeds Chariots PFC. So as the table currently stands, they've played more games than anybody else. Every team gets 2 5-game weekends out of the 5 weekends they play. And Leeds' 5-game weekends were 1 and 2. So they've played 10 games, meaning they've played 10, won 8, lost 2, but have acquired 24 points along the way as a result, which puts them at the top of the table. A couple of teams below them will fancy themselves with the goal or the games in hand. However, points on the board, and they are at the top. A good weekend for them again. Charlie, did you get to see much of them?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed them. They're playing some fantastic football, scoring lots of goals. You know, they've got players at the top of both the goals and assist charts, and you can understand why. They seem to just have a lot of chemistry. Last season was a bit of a transition season for them, it felt like. The first season with Lewis being there and he was sort of trying to build that rapport with Dan. But this year they've just kicked on and they look so strong together. And other than that sort of Newcastle game at the weekend, they were pretty much flawless again. Just dispatching teams, putting them away. And then they showed on Sunday as well that they have the ability to win tighter games. You know, they only beat Sevenoaks 2-1. But that was, you know, a good show of their character. And to pick up 4 wins out of a 5-game weekend is a very decent effort from them. So I'm sure they'll be happy, and being top of the table at Christmas is certainly a milestone.
It certainly is one they'll be very happy with. Rosie, do you see much of Leeds?
I did. I had the pleasure of commentating a few of their games. And just like Charlie said, the rapport that Lewis Harris and Dan Rugby now have is the driving force for the Leeds Chariots team. It is working so well. I just can't see the team without those 2 players now. I can't remember the team where they didn't have those 2 players. It's really helped them, and it's going to help their game in the long run.
Dan did have an issue with his chair during one of the games, so he was off the pitch for a little bit, and they still look fairly comfortable, but I totally agree. I've watched them over the last couple of seasons, and their development as a team's quite an interesting one, because they seem to try out the occasional odd tactic or odd setup, and are one of the more creative teams tactically in the league, which at times pays dividends, at times makes you go, what are they doing that for? But it's good to see some innovation, and that's clearly paying off with their league position at the moment. Notable as well is the number of goals being scored by Jack Maxwell this season. He's popping up at that back post quite a lot on the end of quite a few moves, so proving to be a bit of a talisman for them at the front as well. So, the team that we would probably expect to be up in that top two next. West Brom played 8, won 7, drawn 1, so undefeated so far. Goal difference of 26 and 22 points on the board. A very different looking side from last year, obviously, a couple of players having left. What do you make of them, Charlie?
I think you saw a different side of West Brom this weekend. They definitely played some really nice football at times, don't get me wrong. But you saw their ability to sort of grind out results as well. On the Sunday especially, they had two quite tough games. They had Greenbank and Villa Rockets, two teams that are known for being very good defensively and being very pragmatic. And they changed their system. They usually go with the 4 out with Chris Gordon in goal. They got rid of that. Chris put on the outfield jersey and played in sort of a traditional 3 out system where he was in the middle and then he had Brad on one side and Dylan on the other side. And you know what, they did really well. They looked professional at all times. Their set pieces were really good. Definitely something that they'd worked on since the last National League weekend. And yeah, they just looked clinical, and I don't want to say it, but almost robotic in the way they were going about it. Like, there was no emotion on display. They just looked so mature, and yeah, it was a very good weekend for them. And you know, they're 2 points off the top now with 2 games in hand. They'll back themselves to, when those 5-game weekends come around, give themselves a pretty healthy advantage at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think the interesting game there, Greenbank, with both Marcus and Luke Kelly lining up for Greenbank against West Brom, 2 players that have got a lot of minutes under their belts for West Brom over the last few years as well. So that was an interesting matchup, and the change in tactics was very interesting as well. Rosie, did you see that game?
I did. I actually commentated that game as well. It was a really tough game. You could see just West Brom are just so well rehearsed, and they are clicking so well together like a jigsaw piece. But in that West Brom team this weekend, we did have some milestones for 3 players. Matt Gilbert reached 100 career goals. Brad Bates reached 100 career goals. And Oliver Rock reached 50 career goals. So congratulations to all 3 of them.
Wow, good stats. Thanks for having those. And Jeff normally supplies Ryan with those sorts of ones, so it's good to have you on with those for us this time around, Rosie. Yeah, I think some excellent points there in terms of how well drilled they are, but it's interesting that they were able to switch up their tactics specifically for that Greenbank game as well. Matt Gilbert there, I love Gilly. He flies under the radar a little bit sometimes. He's a fairly quiet personality at times, but he's been a stalwart for West Brom and a very, very accomplished player as well. So that goal tally goes to show how effective he is for them. So really good top work, Gilly. Well done. Right then, on to Teesside, which means we can't really talk about Teesside unless we also talk about 4th place Aspire. We'll get to that game in a bit. But Teesside this weekend were quite buoyant, quite vocal, very, very noticeable when they were in and around the playing arena, and they had a good set of results overall. But they will be absolutely delighted with their final match of the weekend. But let's start on the Saturday. They played Greenbank, Newcastle and Middlesbrough. 2 draws and a win on the Saturday. Some good results for them over the course of the weekend, but they might be disappointed with a couple of those draws, but against good sides. So Greenbank and Newcastle both in the mix as well. Charlie, did you see much of Teesside?
Yeah, so I was actually, I think, on comms for 3 of their 5 games at the weekend, and I did those 2 that you mentioned on the Saturday, the draws with Newcastle and Greenbank, and they just looked very frustrated. Both of the games were very bitty. The ball wasn't really moving, which is Teesside's game. They just couldn't get any pace on the ball. I think the Greenbank one will really frustrate them because they came out so quick and scored literally within a minute through Mitch Tinkler, and you thought, okay, they've broken the seal now. They're going to go on and put in a really good performance. And then they just let Greenbank back into the game. Marcus obviously scored a fantastic goal. That's what he can do. He has that ability with Greenbank. But just overall, I didn't think they looked at their best. And mentally, they looked a little bit worn down after 2 games in that day. And then the Newcastle one was so physical. I mean, it was just such a strong battle, especially between Ethan Fisher and Tyler Reeve in the middle. Those two were properly going at it, hammer and tongue. They weren't really either of them happy with the way the game was going. They both looked very visibly frustrated, but it was a fantastic battle between them. And so on the Saturday, I don't think they reached their heights. But then obviously we'll go on to talk about the Aspire game in isolation, but what a performance that was. That first half was one of the best I've seen from any team in this division. It was devastating.
So the game, of course, we're talking about is the last game of the day on Sunday. But let's just touch on their first game, which was Teesside versus Nottinghamshire. Came out 4-0 winners. So I don't know if they'd had their Christmas party on the Saturday night and were all up and buoyant after the couple of frustrating results. But good spread of goals across the weekend as well. Mitch Tinkler's certainly proven to be a valuable member of that team. And when you look at the other options that they've got available, they're very well stocked, I think, for the season with some good quality players that will all step up when needed. So a 4-0 win against Nottinghamshire. Either of you two commentate on that one?
I cannot remember. I did do a Teesside game, but I can't remember which one it was.
Just to say at this point as well, thank you to you both for the efforts at the weekend. We didn't have Ryan. He was sadly ill, so our comms team all stepped up and took on extra games and extra bits of pieces. So you're totally forgiven for not remembering which game it was, as I know you did a lot. So okay, let's get on to it then. Sorry, Rosie, this is going to be a little bit painful, I think.
Yeah.
So Aspire 0, Teesside 3. I'll go to you, Charlie, because you commentated on the game and you also had a special guest with you in Iffy and Nora, WFA's first ambassador. Let's start with Iffy and how he was and how he found the game, and then we'll get on to the match itself.
Iffy was fantastic. He's such a passionate guy, especially about the sport. He seemed proper into it. I think it was the first game that he'd watched from court level. The first time he'd been courtside and watched the game, and he was so impressed with how fast it was. And it was just such a great conversation. I mean, I was proper picking his brain. Obviously, he has a very successful career in football, and I was asking him a lot, especially about the mental side of the game. Obviously, Aspire had to go into half-time and really rest and recoup, and I was asking him about that, and if he was one of the coaches, what would his team talk be like, and all of that. And yeah, he seemed to have a great time, and we spoke about his role at the Premier League as well, with equality, diversity and inclusion, and yeah, it was just a really great conversation. It feels like Dean has found a fantastic guy to get involved in the sport. Feels like he really embodies sort of the values of the sport, and yeah, he really enjoyed it, I think, and I really enjoyed commentating with him.
That's good to hear. Yeah, so Iffy is head of race equality and inclusion for the Premier League, which is a great link for us to have as well, and someone of that calibre and importance representing the WFA in important conversations and places. So it's great that he had a really good time. I had a little chat with him afterwards. Yeah, he was very impressed with the game once he got down on court level. It's one thing watching it on the streams and even up in the balcony from the stands watching the game, but once you get right down next to it and you feel the pace and the wheels squeak in your ear, it's a different experience. So thank you for guiding him through that and taking on his experience as well in that one. But the first half, you mentioned, Charlie, Teesside absolutely flew out the box. What was the feel for you down there? There's a little bit of shock and disbelief, I think, in some of the Aspire ranks from up top we were watching. Some finger pointing and bits and pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird one. Well, not a weird one. You know how good Teesside are, but you expect sort of games like that to be quite cagey. and it just wasn't. I mean, Mitch Tinkler scored. I mean, his second goal was fantastic. That finish was unbelievable. I know he was voted unsung hero by the players after the weekend. Thoroughly deserved. He was unbelievable in that one. And then I think the talk of the town was Ed Common. You know, there were many England internationals, England teammates sat around the court watching, and Chris and Marcus, people on the court as well, John Balding, and they've all said that they haven't seen him play like that in a long time. It was proper vintage Ed Common, unbelievable. I mean, the ball was just glued to his chair. You never knew what he was going to do next. I mean, that sort of that touch and that two-touch he did for the first Teesside goal, I think it was one of the best pieces of skill I've had the privilege of seeing live. It was unbelievable. And they just really blew Aspire away in that first half. Aspire will, by their own admission, say that they didn't defend anywhere near the level that they feel they should. There was definitely some sloppiness in it from Aspire, and fair play to Aspire, they didn't go under and they kept battling right to the end. But no, the first half was so dominant and just unbelievable from Teesside. They were so clinical, they were so dominant in the game, and yeah, they fully deserved a win. And it was a fantastic result for them.
Yeah, that touch has got a little bit of traction, touch and pass, got a little bit of traction on social media. JB, John Bolden himself, said, I didn't believe in magic until I met Ed Common. And I've watched that back 30 times. That touch is unbelievable. Followed by a pass with the correct amount, the amount of pace he gets on that pass straight after that touch, just from the small movement of his chair, is the timing on that is just incredible, unbelievable. And I think it's probably the most impressive thing I've seen on a Powerchair football pitch, and I've seen quite a lot over the years. So, like you say, those little touches of class that he made it look so easy and so simple. It's hard. It's easy to miss it, but actually watching it back and seeing it back, if any player can do that in training deliberately 1 out of 10 times, you've done really well. But to then add the context of first time and only time he attempted that in a important league game, whilst the game's 0-0, being put under pressure by John Balding and up against the European champions, the context adds so much to the fact that bit of skill's really, really impressive. That's why we're saying it's one of the most impressive bits of play we've ever seen on a Powerchair football pitch, because of that context and the level of difficulty. You know, it's like going full level of difficulty on an Olympic diving board and nailing it in the final to get the gold medal. It's just unreal, absolutely unreal. So that was a real pleasure to watch that. Yeah, I'm trying not to come to you, Rosie, if I can help it. Obviously, you were involved in that game from a playing point of view, and quite painful, I imagine. And yeah, so brief thoughts without having to put you under too much stress.
Ed Common is just incredible. There's nothing more to say, really. Ed Common always shows up in the big games, and he did, really. We all make mistakes. There's no denying that we all made big mistakes, myself included. So we just got to take this on the chin and carry on, work on this in training over the Christmas period and come back with a bang.
Lovely. I'll leave that there. Nice thoughts. Right, let's also have a quick conversation whilst we get here. We've got Teesside and Aspire we've started talking about. We're going to go on to Aspire's weekend in full. However, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top 5. All within 6 points of each other, and their variation between 8, 9 and 10 games played. So it's a fairly complex looking top of the table, but I can't remember a championship or premiership ever having this number of teams like in the group and in the pack at this time of the season. Start of the season maybe, but as the season progresses, there's normally a group of 2, 3 teams that break away at the top, and you can't really see it. But I'm genuinely looking around going, this I don't know who's top 3, top 2, I don't know who's going to win the league. And such an exciting season for our sport. Such an exciting season for our sport. And it's not because the top 2 teams have dropped levels. It's because the teams underneath them have upped their levels and brought them up. A, really encouraging for England. B, how exciting is that for us as spectators watching this league unfold? Probably exciting for you as well, Rosie, being in the mix and being in and amongst that as well. So I'm going to take a little break from looking at the teams now. And I know you both have loyalties, so that's fine. Who are you tipping for top 2? Don't say which way round. You don't have to say which way round. And you're allowed to put your own team in there. So who are you putting for top 2? Charlie.
Wow. It's such a tough one. I think... I still think that it's going to be really tight between probably 3 or 4 teams. I think one of the 5, I don't know who, will drop off in the second half of the season. That's quite natural. And then I think it will end up being close between a top 3 or top 4. But I will still back the old guard. I still think at the end of it's the first season of this proper big title race. I still think at the end of the season the history will prevail and it will still be West Brom and Aspire as the top 2. I don't know in what order, but I just believe that they right now still have the sort of winning DNA and while I think teams like Teesside, Newcastle, Leeds will push them really hard, I think just this season it will continue to be the old guard up top.
Rosie.
Yeah, same really. Either way, Aspire, West Brom are going to be those 2 top teams, I believe. I can see Teesside maybe taking a point, maybe from West Brom, or 3 points from West Brom. You know, it could go either way. Maybe Teesside even creep into that top 2. It's going to be so tight, and I think just like last season, it's going to come down to the final weekend.
Right then, let's see how we get on. We might get you back on to at the end of the season and see how your predictions have got on. We've got a predictions episode or 2 for me and Ryan to go through our predictions, so we might get you back on for that one and see how you got on there. But on to Aspire's weekend. We have talked about the last game. We won't go over that for Rosie's sake. But the previous 3 games, 2 on the Saturday and the one on the Sunday, a 4-1 win over Nottinghamshire, a 4-0 win over Norwich, and a 3-0 win over West Bromwich Albion Throssels. So a fairly successful weekend if take those 3 in isolation. Some good scores, nice comfortable wins, 4 goals and 3 goals. How did you see that weekend for Aspire, Charlie?
I mean, I commentated on all of the Aspire games at the weekend. I thought they played really well in moments in games. I don't think they ever put in a performance for a whole 40 minutes that was at the level of the European champions. But I do think that they were picking up wins consistently. They were, putting 3 or 4 goals past most of the teams they were playing. They looked comfortable in every game, really. I know Norwich especially made it a bit uncomfortable for them at the start with a very good defensive setup, but once they broke it down, they sort of got into the flow of things more. They looked relatively comfortable, but it felt like the weekend was really gearing up to that Teesside game, and they didn't reach the performance levels they would have liked in the earlier games, and that sort of came to a head in the Teesside one, but no, overall, 9 points from 12, it's no disaster, is it?
As you say, looking comfortable a lot of the time, and that phrase has reminded me that one player accidentally left there playing tracksuit bottoms at home, and so spent the weekend playing in their jeans. Now that's a very casual, strong look, that one. So, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I have to apologise to Bobby because he came to me at the start of the game and he went, I've had an absolute nightmare, Charlie. I've shown up in jeans. I've left my tracksuit bottoms at home. I brought everything important. I brought, chargers and all that. I brought my Xbox controller for the room on the Saturday night, he said, but I've forgotten my jeans. I sort of bullied him on commentary about it for the entire weekend. I made up some quotes. I told us the world that he made a bold fashion choice, which wasn't true. He forgot his tracksuit bottoms, but overall, he looked kind of cool. I think he's one of the only players in the league that could probably pull off jeans, just because he's got such a casual, light-hearted vibe that he'd probably be okay wearing them again. To be fair, but no, fair play, Bobby. He took it like a champ.
Yeah, we definitely did grill Bobby in the classroom for his fashion choice that weekend. Usually, Bobby forgets a charger, a guard, a shirt, anything. No, it's the bottoms this time, which wasn't a big deal, but we still like to poke a little bit of fun at him.
Lovely. The James Dean of Powerchair Football, rocking out the jeans. So overall, a positive weekend. The Aspire Teesside result obviously puts a slightly different complexion on the weekend right at the end, but does keep the entire league at the top looking very interesting. So from a neutral's point of view, and I kind of feel like I'm the only real neutral here, I've got to say it's a good result for the league. Disappointing result for Aspire, but a good result for the league. And it's certainly fired up Teesside as well, so it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward as well. So, if we're going to talk about, or having now talked about Bobby and his fashion choices, we were going to do a little power hair feature when we got to West Brom, but I forgot. But I'm going to hand over to Rosie for her spot of someone who puts it together well, including their hair. Rosie, what did you spot?
I mentioned this when I commentated the West Brom Greenbank game. And it's Dylan Kelsall. The hair, the guard, the boots. It just all fits away, so well put together. He's one of those players that, takes care of their appearance, but also takes care of their training and their hard work on the pitch.
Lovely. Great spot. Bobby, take note. Right then. Newcastle United Foundation in 5th. A strong weekend for them. With some challenging games, and they came out generally, I think, probably reasonably happy. A couple of results that they might have hoped for a bit more. On the Saturday, they had a 3-game day, opening up against Greenbank, Teesside, and Leeds Chariots PFC. So 2-0 win against Greenbank, held to a 0-0 draw by Teesside, and of course 2-0 win against Leeds. So 3 sides are in and amongst the mix there, up the top. Greenbank just a little bit underneath the top pack, but 3 sides there that are certainly in and around. And then on the Sunday, they had a 0-0 draw against Villa Rockets and a 2-0 win against Middlesbrough. So that Villa Rockets game, I thought Dave Lewis was superb, and that's the main reason for the 0-0. Nothing that necessarily to do with Newcastle's performance. Just I thought Dave Lewis really stood out in that game and had an absolute stormer. Dominated that game from start to finish, and potentially unlucky not to get more than a draw. But overall, a strong weekend for Newcastle. Rosie, did you see much of Newcastle?
I did, and I'm just taking a look at their results. They were unbeaten this weekend with lots of 2-0 wins or draws, 0-0 draws. A lot of consistency throughout the board. The powerhouse, Ethan Fisher, how incredible is he as a player? Just the way he gets the ball, drive down the side of his chair, and then full spins on it and gets the power on it. The accuracy is beautiful. It's what a player always wants to achieve.
Difficult skills to pull off, and yeah, he does make that adding power into the game look easy. He used to play in a equaliser chair, transferred to a strike force beginning of last season. It's taken him a little while to adjust, but he's really, really comfortable with that chair now, I think, and starting to see his old style of game, very powerful game, being played in that chair. Charlie, did you see much?
Yeah, I did, and I was impressed and also sort of frustrated with Newcastle this weekend. Feels like they beat themselves sometimes, and I know they didn't lose any games, but just in certain games they get themselves so frustrated and so wound up, and it just they are fantastic. They absolutely have a good enough team to win the Premiership. In terms of the players they have on that court, Ethan, Ollie, Sam Smith, Cole, they are all unbelievable footballers. But at times they can... I'll give you the best example of it this weekend is they went out and beat high-flying Leeds Chariots 2-0 on Saturday evening. What a result for them. A massive win. A win that could have completely shifted the momentum in the title race, shifted it back in their favour. And then the next morning they come out and they weren't quite at it against Villa. I know Dave was fantastic and Villa played very well and they are a very, very good team as well. But they just weren't quite at it. And you think... the consistency that you need to win a title, I don't think it is the games against Aspire and Teesside and West Brom and Leeds that are gonna hold Newcastle back if they don't win it this season. I think it's just other times where they drop, a sloppy 2 points here or lose a game here, and you sort of look at it and think, if they could just iron that out of their game a little bit, they would be pretty much unbeatable because they've got all the tools to win any game of football. And it feels like they can get up for the really, really big games against the teams at the top of the table. But sometimes when they're playing against teams a bit lower down than them, they struggle to find the motivation. Is that too harsh or is that a fair reflection? Because I know speaking to the Newcastle coaching staff myself at the weekend, that was the reflection that they had.
I think for me, watching them, sometimes their big performances come out of their kind of emotional excitement. Newcastle United as an entire club, not just a Powerchair team, but the entire club, has always been a heart on the sleeve type performances and a way of kind of approaching the game. And I just wonder whether that's, as you said, plays into it. The big games really get them going, and sometimes that emotional high isn't there for some of the others until it's a bit too late. But like you say, running through that squad, you've got Aaron Guthrie, Kieran Steer, Ollie Crawshaw, Lee Armstrong, Sam Smith, Ethan Fisher and Cole Simpson. That's a great squad of players to be able to pull from. And like you say, they've got all the tools there. Everything they need is in that squad. Lee Armstrong dominated the Premiership a couple of seasons ago and looked fantastic. And now he's under a lot of pressure to get into the starting four with Sam Smith, Ethan Fisher, Cole Simpson, Ollie Crawshaw, all knocking on the door for starting places as well. So they've got strength in depth. They've got a track record. They should have the belief that they can go out and beat anyone. It's just putting it all together and getting that consistency and determination. And maybe a season where that doesn't quite happen is the lessons that they'll learn going forward for another one. But if they can pull it together this season, they're going to be a dominant force and a strong competitors for that top of the table spots. Rosie, have you played them yet?
Yeah.
I think we have. Yes, we have. Sorry, my mind is on a different planet. Yes, we have played Newcastle. We drew 0-0, I believe, with them. Yes, we did. Just the power from Ethan Fisher, I think, really helps set up the team to be able to score. Ethan is one of their main defenders and attackers, put it that way. That squad is a very young squad as well, we've got to remember. Their passion may come from a place of excitement because they are so young. That squad is an average age of 19 years old, one of the youngest in the league. So that team, if that team, majority of those players don't end up being in the England squad within the next, I'd say, 10 years, something's gone wrong, because I could definitely see Ollie Crawshaw and Ethan Fisher, especially those two, being the driving force of the England squad.
Yes, the future is looking very bright as we go through these teams in the top 6 that are looking to challenge the established 2. Moving on then to position number 6 in the table, it's Greenbank PFC. What a debut season this is. So, they are currently played 9, won 3, drawn 2, lost 4. 11 points on the table. Now, 11 points for any promoted team at the end of the season would be a phenomenal achievement. The gap between the Premiership and the Championship is staying the same, despite the fact the Championship is improving all the time. Unfortunately, the Premiership is also stepping up. So it's a it's a different kind of environment when you come up from the Championship into the Premiership for players. The game's quicker. The ball gets put down much faster for kick-ins, and we're often rolling. The average time that players are still, as in not moving in their chair, in the Premiership is significantly lower than it is in the Championship. We've got some stats on that. So the game's a lot faster. The amount of time that players spend driving in reverse in the Premiership is much higher than in the Championship. So there's some significant differences in the pace and tempo of play and how it's executed in the Prem. So for Greenbank to be where they are on the table is a phenomenal achievement. I know they've got a couple of very experienced players who have played in the Prem, but they've also got some very young players that have never been in the Prem until this season who are shining and doing well and really putting in some great performances. The weekend for them was a 5-game weekend. On the Saturday, there were a win, a loss and a draw against some difficult opposition. And then on the Sunday, a win and a loss for them. So a weekend that most promoted teams would be absolutely ecstatic about. And I'm sure Greenbank were happy, but there must be a little bit about them that's thinking, oh, could we done a little bit better in a couple of places? Let's start on the Saturday. A win, a loss and a draw. Lost 2-0 to Newcastle. Beat Nottinghamshire 3-0 and then held Teesside to a 1-1 draw. Either of you guys involved in the commentary on any of those games?
Yeah.
On the Sunday I was, not the Saturday.
Yeah, I had their game against Teesside on the Saturday, and I thought they were really good. I thought they played really well. They did that sort of that thing where they can just make the game go so static at points, and you feel like it's just a game of chess it turns into with Marcus Harrison at times. But yeah, they played really well. They probably could have committed more and go on and won it. If they fully committed their players forward, but the flip side of that would have meant that there would have been a decent chance of Teesside opening them up a bit more and going on and winning it themselves. But no, they were great this weekend, and I'd like to say I'm surprised that they're doing so well, but I'm really not. Marcus Harrison just is that guy, isn't he? Without sort of bigging him up too much, because I don't want his head to get big. He's fantastic. I remember the awards night last year. I mean, he showed up late characteristically, but when he eventually did arrive, he was up literally every 5 minutes getting an award because he just is that good. He's so good with both the defensive and attacking elements of the game. But also, yeah, I agree with you, Alex, that the younger players are stepping up. Jacob Bookplatt is taking to Premiership life like a fish to water. He's doing very well, and he's got a great coach in Marcus to guide him through it as well. And so you can just tell, and they're actually a really nice blend of experience and youth. Greenbank, they're doing really well to balance out the sort of excitement of being in the Premiership with composure and sort of a sense of realism about where they are this season, and it's serving them really well. So yeah, was very impressed with Greenbank this weekend yet again, and they're just going from strength to strength really.
I think Luke Kelly is an absolutely brilliant foil for Marcus. His tactical awareness and understanding of game situations at any one particular time means that they've got a level of safety in that team as well. He makes some smart decisions at important times that nullifies potential threats from even starting and getting going. So it's a nice combo they've got there, a nice little balance, like you say, of experience and young talent coming through. Just also to mention Liam Fitzpatrick, who joined our comms team for the weekend as well, which is good to have Liam on board. He's doing really well this season too. So this Sunday, a 3-0 loss to West Brom, which no disgrace in that whatsoever, and a 5-0 win against Norwich City, fellow new promoted team, who have probably experienced a more standard first season for a Premiership promoted team than Greenbank are. Rosie, did you see any of those games?
I did. I commentated the West Brom Greenbank game, and Greenbank went, it was so much positivity and energy, but things went against them. Ellie Curran's chair was just over on the backrest for the technical spec, so she had to sit out until half time for the chair to be readjusted. And then towards the end of the game, Marcus Harrison's chair ran out of battery. A rookie mistake indeed. But they tried so hard, and we had Jacob Bookplatt just on that pitch, taken over for Marcus when he left the pitch. He did so incredibly well. He's going to be one of those players to watch out for in the next coming years because Marcus is mentoring him so well. And the Norwich Greenbank game, Norwich beat them 1-0 last season when it was like the last weekend in May, I believe. And I'm pretty sure Greenbank will be happy to seek revenge with a 5-0 win.
Certainly will. 5-0's a great result for them. And like you say, Marcus isn't just putting in the performances, he's also mentoring those younger players and bringing them on. And it's great when you chat with the Greenbank players. They're all confident, they're all enjoying themselves and having a great time. Ellie and Liam particularly are loving life in the Premiership. And so, yeah, it's really good to see. And just goes to show that with the right little bit of blend and mix and talent, promoted teams can make an impression in the Premiership, and it's good to see. Great to see. Right, moving on to 7th in the table, Villa Rockets. A couple of great results for them, or great performances, at least over the weekend. They played Sevenoaks and West Bromwich Albion Throttles on the Saturday, beating Throttles 3-0 and losing 2-1 to Sevenoaks. And then a fantastic draw against Newcastle on the Sunday, 0-0. And unfortunately losing 2-0 to West Brom as well, which to an extent, as we said before, is excusable. Not sure it's what they'd want going into the game, but nevertheless it is excusable. Did you see much of Villa Rockets over the weekend?
I saw a bit, yeah. I saw a couple of their games. I managed to catch glimpses. I thought they were really good at times and really silly at times. I think, the goodness came when they were pragmatic and when they were moving the ball and they were counter-attacking with quick passing moves. And then the silliness came when they just felt like they played themselves into trouble at times, which I feel like they'll admit. But overall, Villa Rockets are a team that they always are around the middle of the table. They're very rarely threatened with relegation. They're more than good enough to cement their place in the centre of the league. I think this season it isn't their time to push up the league maybe and break into that sort of top 5 that we spoke about, but they'll have a good tussle with Greenbank for the top half, which will be entertaining, whether Villa or Greenbank can take the 6th spot, which in itself is a good achievement. And yeah, they're doing really well. They're growing into it. I know Bobby Allen obviously is a new player for them, and he's slowly getting there in terms of understanding the system. And then Dave is back to being such a talented middleman for a team in that division. He's doing very well. Everything goes through him. And yeah, they're doing well. They're not getting consistent results, which is what sort of holds them back from pushing up the table. But against anyone on their day, they're good value for at least a point.
Certainly are. And I think pointing out Dave playing in the middle so well this weekend just gone was interesting. I certainly picked up on it watching them. However, they also within one game had 4 separate players playing in that pivot role at different points. So one was kind of a forced period of play where they'd rotated, and thus Bobby Allen found himself in the middle doing that. But the other 3 of Dave Lewis, Bubba, and Hamza all were tactical switches and putting people into those positions. It's interesting to see Bubba step back into goal, have Dave in front of him, which has put Hamza Madir out onto the right wing on occasions for Villa. He's a player we've picked up on in the podcast quite a bit over the last 6 months. Very talented player, very controlled, doesn't seem to make panicky decisions, and it's good to see him out on the wing. I'm excited to see what he's capable of doing out there and learning. He's been a very, very strong goalkeeper for Villa, very strong goalkeeper. But actually, young player coming forward, coming through. It's good to get him into different positions.
I just want to give a shout out actually to referee David Morris, who is extremely generous at the weekend and brought every player in the league a Christmas gift. Now, I nearly cried. I asked him, I said, "Is this from the WFA?" And he went, "No, it's from me." I was like, "Really? Oh, thank you so much." It was extremely generous, and I just want to say thank you again.
Yeah, even I managed to get my hands on one, which you know, listen, I'm not going to complain. The selection box was thoroughly attended to on that Saturday between games. But yeah, that was just unbelievable kindness, and it's such a good hallmark of the community around Powerchair Football. He's ran around like Santa at the weekend. It was fantastic. So yeah, thank you very much, Dave. And I know it was the talk of lots of changing rooms. It was such an unbelievably kind gesture.
Very lovely, Dave. That's great. Also, just to note, Dave, there are people up in the balcony. So next year, feel free to pop up and say hi to us as well. Only joking. Wonderful sentiment and touch. Thank you for mentioning that, guys. That's really, really appreciated. Right, on to 8th in the table, Sevenoaks PFC. Obviously, a change of management this season with Adam McAvoy going on to be England head coach. Can't coach a club team as well, really. So Ian has stepped up from assistant and experienced a little bit of a challenging weekend. I think Miles Miller is also coaching with Ian, so they've got some senior players stepping in. And so a little bit of adjustment period maybe for them to get used to. And Greg Baxter has also moved north, literally and club-wise. So he's switched from the south coast up to the northeast, and so has moved from Sevenoaks to Teesside, which has left a bit of a gap for Sevenoaks for definite. They've got a smallish squad, but nevertheless they are getting some good results, but a mixed bag for them overall. Lost to West Brom 4-0 on the Saturday, but beat Villa Rockets 2-1. Good result there. Also on the Sunday, beat Nottinghamshire 1-0, but losing 2-1 to top of the table Leeds Chariots. But 2-1 against top of the table, you'd normally say is quite a decent result. So overall, a mixed weekend for them. They don't find themselves in the bottom of the table, which they were for part of last season, but over the last 4 or 5 seasons, they found themselves up near the top 4. So a mixed time for Sevenoaks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive Sevenoaks fan. I will always pedal their cause. I think, you know, Kyle Alexander especially embodies everything that's great about the sport. His passion and his friendliness and his ability to smile no matter what's going on in the game is so admirable. He's got such alluring qualities in terms of he's just a great guy. And you know what? It was a good weekend for Sevenoaks, considering they had a very tough first weekend. To beat, especially the Villa Rockets result on the Saturday afternoon, not heard as loud a roar in that sports hall for quite a while as to when that second Sevenoaks winner went in. It was loud. They were absolutely loving it over there, and you can see why. And you know, even the Leeds game, that was a relatively tight game. You know, Leeds took the lead, then Harry Bestwick equalised for Sevenoaks, and then Leeds ended up winning it. But it was tight, and they were in it the entire time. And yeah, I think it was a great weekend for them. They're slowly growing into life after Adam and Greg, which was always going to be a tough adjustment, 2 absolute staples of that football club. But eventually they're going to get there, and I think they'll be relatively comfortable in staying up this season, which it will be their primary goal. And yeah, James Mason I thought was especially impressive this weekend in terms of it was probably the best weekend we've seen from him in a Sevenoaks shirt so far. And yeah, I just thought generally a very good weekend. Very happy for Sevenoaks that they're getting better and stabilising in this new chapter.
Great stuff. Rose, did you see much of Sevenoaks?
I didn't, but I just love the way Sevenoaks are as a team. They gel so well together, and there is no better motivator in the team than Kyle Alexander, who will shout his love and adoring gestures to the team. I remember commentating one time and I actually burst out laughing because it took me off guard. And Kyle just goes, "I love you, Miles," and it just made me crack up. But he is a great motivator for that team, and 2 wins and 2 losses is not a bad weekend.
Yeah, they're a really great bunch of lads and players there. They when I was at Bournemouth, Sevenoaks were kind of like our fairly nearest, not quite our nearest team, but nearest team that we used to have pre-match, pre-season friendlies against and stuff. And I know the lads really well and got to hang out with them quite a bit. So they are a great bunch. So I wish them all the best for the rest of the season. Hope they can stay in that middle bit of the table or move up again as a bit if they can as well. Right then, on to position number 9, West Bromwich Albion Throssels. Now, quite a bit of change for them in the close season, not least the change in coach. They have now got Colin Gordon, previous England head coach and European champion, managing the side. A couple of new players come in as well, and I think it's taken a little bit of time to gel and get new ideas from Colin into their play. A better weekend than the previous one, I would say, but nevertheless a challenging one for them as well. They've played 4 games this weekend, won 1, lost 3, but the 3 teams that they lost against were Villa Rockets, Leeds Chariots and Aspire. So relatively tough. They might have hoped to have got maybe a bit more out of the Villa Rockets match, and they'll probably be pleased with a 3-0 hold against Aspire, given that they lost 5-0 to Leeds on the Saturday. So some improvements and some tightening up in places for the Throssell side. Have you seen much of their development over the course of the season, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, it's very ambitious what they're doing. I hate the word in a footballing sense, but their project is an exciting one. You know, Colin coming from England and trying to implement that style of play at Throssels is a very, very ambitious aim, but feels like they're getting there. I had their goals against Norwich thrust in my face by a very happy Colin Gordon on the balcony on Sunday morning. They scored some fantastic team moves in that game. Some really nice goals. I mean, Abbey Bolt's finish for their first goal against Norwich deserves a shout out. It was great. It was a really great goal. And slowly but surely they're getting there, and they're starting to understand what Colin wants from them in terms of where they need to be positionally, both attacking and defensively. And yeah, they are getting there. It's very ambitious, as I said, but when it comes off, it's really interesting and it's great. And yeah, they probably will have wanted to get more out of at least one of those games against the teams higher up in the table than them. But it's no disaster. We know what you need to do to stay up in this league. And you know, listen, they're doing it so far. So all good from my perspective.
What we've got to remember as well is West Bromwich Albion Throssell have had one of the most amount of signings in the free agent period in the summer. So this team is still trying to find their feet, coming together, especially with a new coach as well. I'm hoping that the expertise of Colin Gordon can help keep this team in the league. They don't deserve to be in 10th place. They don't deserve to be in that relegation area. So I'm really hoping that the expertise of players like Amy Wharton as well and Colin Gordon can bring the team up into the league throughout the season, and I'm excited to see where they progress.
So as it currently stands, they have played 9, won 2, lost 1, drawn 1 and lost 6, and minus 16 goal difference, sat on 7 points. So they're still fairly early in the season. They've got a bit of time to go yet, but nevertheless a challenging period for them coming up in the back end of the season to try and get enough points to stay out of the playoff or relegation position. So in the playoff position at the moment is Nottinghamshire PFC. They've played 9, won 1, drawn 1, lost 7, also minus 16 goal difference, the same as Throssell's, but only on 4 points for them. So they're just above the relegation spots and in the playoff position, but nevertheless, a worrying time for them. They had Adam Langley off for a long period last season, although he's back this year. He hasn't been a starting regular just yet. He's been in and out on the subs bench as well. So a tough weekend for them. They lost 4-1 to Aspire, 3-0 to Greenbank, 4-0 to Teesside and 1-0 to Sevenoaks. So 4 losses out of 4 for them. Still look like they can play some good football and are putting a real battle in, and they look like a experienced Premiership side, even if the results aren't showing that they are. They obviously played you on the Saturday, Rosie. How did that go? How did you find Nottinghamshire's set-up and performance against you?
Well, I think Sean Donoghue joining Nottinghamshire PFC has been an excellent signing for them. Last season, Nottinghamshire just seemed to be a little bit disjointed. So obviously didn't have Adam Langley. Looked like they were missing something. Adding Adam Langley back in and Sean Donoghue, it is just like harmonious. I just hope that they can click a little bit more to help them get past winning games. When we played them on the Saturday, they defended really well. It was just little pointers here and there that just let us get the better of them. But they did play very well. It was a performance they should be proud of.
I totally agree. I think it was a good set of performances, just a worrying set of results for them in that respect. I did feel that they've got had quite a big squad at the weekend, and there was obviously you need to play your players and give them those chances, but I just wonder whether there were almost too many substitutions at times to get some of that flowing, and whether or not splitting the workload over games rather than within a match might have given them a bit more solidity in their performances.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think there was, especially in that Aspire game, there was moments where they had really good momentum, and then they made changes and they just killed it, especially at the start of the second half, actually. They were quite heavily losing in the game. I think it was either 3 or 4-0 at the time, but they came out and there was about a 5-10 minute spell where they proper had Aspire pinned in their half, and they scored a goal, and they were moving the ball, and they were really aggressive and attacking, and I thought, this is fantastic, this is exactly what you want to see from a team playing against one of the better sides in the league. And then they made changes and it got quiet again, and it got a little bit less energetic, and you just think, first of all, why aren't they starting games in the way that they played in that spell against Aspire? Why aren't they being aggressive and front-footed and trying to score from the off? Because if they did do that, I think they'd do a lot better, because they'd be able to win games by outscoring teams, because they do have the quality to score goals. So first of all, why aren't they doing that? And second of all, when they are in the ascendancy in games, why would you... And we're not saying that the changes that they're making is making their team worse. It's just in a moment when a team has momentum, when you make changes to that, it just changes the balances slightly, and it can sort of pull you back a bit. So that was probably my main gripe with Nottinghamshire at the weekend, is that they actually had some really good spells, but then they'd kill them by tactically or personnel changing it, and it felt like they probably could have done a lot better in a couple of the games, especially that Sevenoaks game. If they hadn't done that, I mean, that would be the killer for them, won't it? That Sevenoaks result. I mean, the other 3 you can sort of go, okay, they're playing against very good teams, and not saying Sevenoaks aren't, but they're a team around them in the table that they probably would have viewed as a good opportunity to pick up some points, and they were beaten 1-0, and they didn't really have a massive go at Sevenoaks, and I think that will be the disappointing thing for them.
Lovely observations. Yeah, I think that's the case, and so I'm sure they'll go away and reflect on that themselves as well, and look to change that in the upcoming fixtures in the new year. Into the relegation positions then, and not unusually, we find 2 promoted teams in there at the moment. It's always a baptism of fire, of, as we've said, the change in pace and change in tempo and style of play in the Premiership. So Middlesbrough played 8, 1-1, lost 7, minus 23, but 3 points on the board. not playing terrible football, not having terrible performances. They're putting some good stuff in, but they are coming undone a little bit up against some of the bigger, faster, stronger teams. But a challenging weekend again for them. But they've scored a goal, and they were absolutely delighted with that. I saw them.
They scored 2 goals.
2 goals. I saw the one that they scored against Leeds, and they celebrated a great deal. But I imagine when they scored against West Brom, they would have been equally loud with that. So they lost 7-0 to Teesside, 5-1 to West Brom, scoring that goal as mentioned, 2-0 to Newcastle, which I think is a pretty good result overall, and a 3-1 loss to Leeds, also good result. So although they're losses, the Sunday performances and results very encouraging for a promoted team, and we can't overemphasise enough how much a season in the Prem is needed to understand and get the experience to really be able to perform in the Premiership under most circumstances. Greenbank being a bit of an exception at the moment, but certainly the season isn't a bad reflection on Middlesbrough at all. It's in actual fact, I think they're doing really, really well. Did you guys get to commentate on any of their games?
I did the Middlesbrough Teesside game, and it was actually all right. You know, the Middlesbrough team, yes, they did lose their heads a little bit, losing 7-0, but the encouragement from Carolyn Goldsborough really emphasises the team's want to play. She's able to lift the team up and keep them pushing and still, which is so valuable to have in a coach.
Yeah, you mentioned that as about lifting them up. They are quite a young side as well overall. I'm sure Kath won't mind me saying, bar Kath, they haven't got years and years of experience in amongst their ranks. They've got some young, talented players making up the majority of their squad, and they are learning, but they keep their heads up and they've got a great attitude, and they don't let the losses get them down. They're very much, we want to try and enjoy our football when we get to play it and learn what we can to try and get ourselves forward. Charlie, did you see much of Borough over the weekend?
No, I didn't, unfortunately, but I was fortunate enough to be in the hall for both of their goals and to hear the explosion of noise when they both went in. And yeah, I think the point that Rosie made about sort of motivation and togetherness is a really important one when it comes to Middlesbrough. And at the end of the day, I know they're going to be in a scrap for the entire season, and that's, par for the course, but they are only 1 point off Nottinghamshire, and in a playoff anything can happen. So if they can just lift themselves up one position above Nottinghamshire, and their togetherness could be the driving factor in them being able to do that, you never know what could happen, and they could survive, and that would be a massive achievement. But yeah, they're doing really well at the minute, Middlesbrough. They are entertaining to watch. They are passionate. They are, yeah, they're a good watch, and they're a good listen as well if you're in the court and you can hear those encouraging shouts and screams and hollers that come from the top of the hall as well.
I think that's a great point you've made about a route to stay in the Premiership for promoted teams. You've got to try and finish just outside the playoff position if you can, but your plan B, as it were, is that playoff where if you finish in 10th position, you play off against whoever's finished third in the Championship. And with that extra year under your belt in the Premiership, and you've played that extra level, extra standard, that slightly higher level, if you can take a positive experience from that rather than let it get you down and beat you up a bit as a team, then you're in a much stronger position in that playoff game. That gives you that extra pace, that extra power, the extra time that you'll find yourself in because you're playing that bit faster. So really that's the aim of any team to coming up is to can you get in that playoff position or just out and really take as much experience as you can from playing in that better environment to transform your game. And then you should be able to beat third place in the Championship. Should be able to. So that's an interesting point. Well done. Cheers, Charlie. On to our final team then in 12th position, another promoted team, Norwich City. 1 point, so they've got a draw on the board. So they have got points on the board, which at this time of the season for promoted teams, particularly ones that have come up via the playoff, that's a pretty good result. Let in 37 goals, but this is not a unique experience for Norwich. Many promoted teams coming up have shipped a lot of goals when you first come up, because there's the extra space and passing lanes that Premiership teams use and find means that your defence that got you promoted isn't necessarily positionally where you need it to be for the Premiership, and certainly not necessarily there fast enough with the speed in which people can play. So again, a tough weekend for them. They played some big sides. It's not an envious set of fixtures. Greenbank, Throssels, Aspire and Leeds as a weekend is pretty tough. The standout result for them, probably the 2-1 loss to Throssels. A good performance for them. It's an encouraging result. Throssels were a decent side, managed by Colin Gordon, as we said, so no disgrace in that performance at all. They'll be disappointed with the Leeds 7-0 loss and Greenbank 5-0, but 4-0 against Aspire as well. A team of that calibre, they'll be okay. Of course, mixed feelings for you in some ways, I suppose, Rosie. Norwich being your old team, and I know you're still close with them and support them when you're not performing against them. And a couple of signings for them over the season. They've added Jake Edwards, who had stepped back from playing but signed back up again, and Thomas Donaher as well from Ireland. I think they've got a couple of people out at the moment, unable to play for medical reasons, with Mike and Jack Fulcher both absent this weekend. So two big play.
Mike was back.
Mike was back, was he? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Mike was back. I missed seeing them, so I thought Mike was off, but Jack's still out, I believe, at the moment. So important players for them. Played big parts in their performance last season to come up. So a difficult weekend for them, Rosie. How's mood in the camp now? I'm sure you're close enough to know.
It's a little wobbly, I won't lie. Players, it's hard to lose lots of games on the trot, and that was one of their biggest worries coming up into the Premiership. I feel a little bit bad because I feel like I have left them high and dry, but I haven't. I am still around in the camp. I still, try to be with the players when I can, because a lot of them are close friends of mine. Mike Coleman, one of the players who I originally started playing Powerchair Football with 14 years ago. But the 4-0 win Aspire had against Norwich on Saturday was bittersweet, to say the least. I felt like I had it in for me, as if to be like, you left us, we're not going to let you score. And they did wind me up before the game saying, we're not going to let you score, we're not going to let you get your 200 goals against us, which is quite funny. But the performance they did was incredible, especially against us as Aspire. They were very defensive. Adding Thomas Donaher into the team has made a big impact. He was very defensive. And Johan George as well, now going into a goalkeeper position, I feel has benefited them massively. Johan George is known to be quite a defensive midfielder, so putting him into goal where he has a good rapport with Mike Coleman really helps.
It certainly is, yeah. Joe's been around in different positions over the last couple of years, so if he finds himself settled in goal, that'll be a good additional kind of facet to Norwich's team and game. But like I say, it really is demoralising for players to go from a season where you win a lot, hence why you've been promoted, to a season where you lose a lot, and it is difficult to keep motivated and take those for what they are. And like you say, it's if a team can take positive experiences and learning experiences from those and treat it as that, then you tend to get to where you need to get to a bit quicker. But at the same time, like, it's very difficult to keep motivated and keep spirits high in the contrast between a winning season to a very difficult season, which, as we've said a couple of times already, a lot of the promoted teams experience, no matter who they are. Did you see much of Norwich, Charlie?
Not a huge amount, but I did get to watch them at least one or two times. I think I can completely agree with Rosie. I mean, she's a lot more in the know about Norwich than I am, but they're battling away. They're doing well. the morale did seem low. And I think they just need to get back to enjoying their football and realise that what will be this season. I mean, when you look at it, they've got a big weekend coming up. They've got one day in the next weekend where they've got both Middlesbrough and Nottinghamshire, so that could be a chance, a glimmer of hope for them. But no, I think they should just enjoy their time in the Premiership for now. Try pick up as many wins as they can, and then if it gets to weekend 5 and they're still in it, then you can start to get all intense and serious. But up until that point, they should be just enjoying the journey, enjoying the learning, especially for players like young Henry. This is such a good season for him to learn about the Premiership and to develop his game. And then obviously Thomas coming over from Ireland, it's definitely helped them. So yeah, I think that they just need to keep plugging away. I know it's not nice being at the bottom of the table, but to be in the Premiership at all is a fantastic achievement, and just it is a testament to how well they're doing as a club.
Thanks a lot. Thank you both for joining me on this podcast. Before we go, though, I am going to have a little promotion of something I've been involved in but can't take too much credit for. This weekend also saw the launch of the WFA Scoreline app, the first app for consumers and fans in Powerchair Football. So the app's got live updates of games, links to all the live streams as they're happening, player stats, latest news as well. It's a phenomenal piece of work by WFA trustee, league secretary and Leeds player Jack Humphreys. It's part of his university degree early on, and he took what was a fairly basic app, and he's been working really hard and offered the odd bit of wisdom and graphics to design what is a very successful launch of the WFA Scoreline app. We're really chuffed with it. Seemed to work really well for everyone, and Google have now managed to do what Apple did in 30 hours. They've managed to do that in 10 days and authorise the Android app, and so it's available on both Android and iOS from the major app stores. It's free. You can download it, and there's lots more to come. We've built infrastructure. I keep saying we. Jack's built infrastructure, and we've had conversations about what the future holds for the Scoreline app in terms of extra additional features and functionality. So that will be rolling out as we go. There'll be something new for the next weekend. We know we've got a couple of updates to do. There's a couple of bugs to squish, nothing major, and a couple of features to add as well. You guys obviously had the app slightly earlier than some. We had you on our beta testing process so that commentators could have access to the stats and the information in there. Did you find it useful, and how have you found it since it's gone public? Yeah,
it's unbelievable. I mean, I'm a massive fan of these kind of apps. I think I've got about 100 of them following various sports, I always get goal notifications when a goal goes in the Premier League from, Flash Score or something like that. And then I looked at my phone at the weekend and I was getting goal notifications for Powerchair Football, and I was like, this is unbelievable. It was quite surreal, actually. I ran through to because one of them, I was clearing up my notifications the day after, and it was the goals from the Aspire Teesside game, and it said full time and stuff, and I ran through and showed my dad in the living room and was like, look at this is unbelievable. It was I mean, it's just incredible. It's another massive attribute for the WFA, another massive tool that they can use to convey information. And yeah, it's so good. I'm going to be sending it to all my friends to get them to download it, because they're constantly asking about my brother's progress, and I can go, well, you can look for yourselves now. So yeah, it's great to have a portal where all this stuff is in the same place. And yeah, to you, Alex, and to Jack, very well done.
Yeah, again, just well done, Jack and Alex. This app is incredible. If you can get your hands on it, please do. I now have all my friends and family on the app who are able to track our progress, and it gives so many more eyes to our sport, which is what we want to do. We want to make sure our sport is being able to seen by so many people, and this app is just truly phenomenal. So again, congratulations to Alex and Jack for creating this app. It is incredible.
Thank you very much. Like I say, Jack, pretty much. It's also to mention it is built from the ground up. It's completely proprietary. There's nothing we've grabbed from anywhere else, and it's all our own. So we've got full control over it. But it's also part of what we would probably describe as the digital ecosystem, WFA-wise. So the goals being added by you guys as commentators on the pitch side, on the side of the pitch as the game's going on. So goal goes in. We've got a couple of other apps that we use, one for the referees and one for commentators. The commentators add in the goal, and then that does a number of things, which includes putting the graphics onto the screen, so that tells you who's just scored. But now, when you add it in, it also goes into our database as a whole, and that's where the Scoreline app is powered from as well. So you've got one central point for all of that data. So when you get a goal notification, it's probably a commentator that's just tapped it in as they've been describing that in audio form as well. And as we go forward, we're slowly rolling out AI match reports into the app as well. If you go in, some of the games have got them. We're still tweaking a few bugs in that, but we've managed to create a quite a clever workflow where we take the data that we enter into the system, along with a transcript of the commentary from our wonderful commentators that have described the match, to get an AI match report written. That is, some of them are absolutely brilliant. So I don't know where it came up with the idea or how it came up with the phrase, but putting their chairs on the line as it came up with yesterday as we were running through some of the reports. It's a really fantastic addition, and will enable players a few days after the weekend to go through and read match reports that they've been involved in, but also you can then share that out on socials as well to everyone who's asking how you're getting on, how's your team doing. You can send them match reports and they can have a read and find out. So there's lots more to come though. I won't spoil all of those features, but we've got quite a list of things that we've got ideas for, and hopefully some of those will be out soon. So go to any app store or Google Play Store or Apple App Store, search WFA Scoreline and get that app installed. It'll be really good. Thanks everyone for listening. My sincere appreciation to Charlie and Rosie. You've been absolutely fantastic. Great to hear your views and have you on the pod. I'm 100% certain this will not be the last time for either of you, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.